Hi, and welcome back to the Realistic Sustainability Podcast. On this next educational short, we're going to talk about how do you assess the impact of an item. When you're shopping for different things, which one impacts the earth less? Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. When I was in college, I got the very confusing answer of it depends, which is not always all that helpful. But it is still true. How do you grade it? Do you grade it on the amount of waste that is left over? How quickly it biodegrades or can be recycled? Or is it simply how much energy was placed into that product and how many times it can be used? Honestly, it depends on the situation. For an example, we always talk about paper or plastic bags, and for years we've always said that paper was the only way to go because it was biodegradable. It didn't take so long. Those plastics can take up to thousands of years to biodegrade. But is that really the reality? The fact is that we use trees much quicker than we can grow them. These bags are generally produced on the other side of the planet. You can only get so many on a ship. So if you take the amount of energy it takes to make these bags and divide it by how many bags you get when you ship them across the world, you get a lot more plastic bags. Then there's other things like reusability and things of that nature. So what you find out is that there's a lot more factors other than waste, where for years and years and years we've only talked about what goes in a landfill, but everything takes energy. So for an example, I tend to use embodied energy, how much energy an item has all the way from the very beginning to the very end. The fact is that if we can reduce the amount of energy something takes, we dramatically reduce its carbon footprint. So for an example, if I have an apple from China or an apple from Michigan, where I live, that apple could be a little more expensive, but it didn't have to come from the other side of the planet. This tends to lead to regional purchases. And with embodied energy, the more times you use something, let's say a grocery sack, the more times you use it, let's say you use it to bring groceries home, then you use it to take your lunch to work. And then once you're there, you put it in the trash can as a trash can liner. You can now divide that by 3, the amount of energy it took divided by 3, because you got 3 uses. You didn't buy something to take your lunch back and forth with. You used something you already had. And you also didn't buy trash can liners because you just used the bag. So reusability is also another key aspect to reducing your carbon footprint. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about my coffee mug, my aluminum coffee mug that is used constantly. Well, aluminum is one of those materials that is recyclable, and one of the few materials that uses less energy to recycle than it does to create new virgin aluminum. But if I bought that cup and only used it for a year, I would have used a tremendous amount of energy in comparison. So I want to make sure that whatever decisions and choices I make end up in a net positive. Increase my positive footprint by using less. Depending on the situation, I've learned that using the embodied energy works really well, because if I choose things that are more local, I'm going to reduce the amount of travel, warehousing, and other things. If I go by embodied energy, I want to use it more often. I want to be able to divide that total energy into more uses. So I tend to use an item 2, 3, and hopefully sometimes 4 times. I tend to keep them longer, reducing how many things I have to buy. When it's finally used up, I'm more likely to recycle it. And there's less waste, less emissions, and less energy. So when you go shopping next, how will you grade your next purchase? How will you look at the impact? Will it be purely by its waste content, if it's recyclable? Or are you looking at the whole picture, embodied energy, which I think we're going to talk about next week? Let us know. Send me a comment. If you think it's right or wrong, tell me, because the more comments we get, the better. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I know the conversation of paper or plastic is always controversial, but the more we talk about it, the more we learn, and the better we get at having a sustainable future. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and if you liked this podcast, forward to a friend, post it on Facebook. The more exposure we get, the better. And if you can, leave a comment, because that helps people find us on the podcast platforms. Thanks again. I'll see you next week.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Feeling overwhelmed by climate change? Looking for sustainable and ethical brands to support? Then Ethic is perfect for you. Ethic is a simple browser extension that helps you find sustainable and ethical brands online. Learn more at ethyk.org, ethyk.org.